But it's there because priest keeps a clean board every time. Like every turn, you want to clear the board as best as you can till turn 8 and above,
Okay.
and then you're pretty much solid. That's really the deck, right? Just clean the board into turn 8. And then when they put one big guy, then hopefully can mind control that. It's pretty dead against aggro. It's pretty dead against mid range as well. But it's
Yeah,
better
that's a
than
big.
Zera.
That's
It's better
definitely the
than
big
Zera.
complaints of mind control is that pretty useless against those two types of styles and archetypes. What do you wait, actually, Reynad? What's your thoughts on mind control?
Yeah, I just like Amaz, I started with Ysera the first time I built Priest, and after a while I tried switching it to Mind Control, and I was playing against more slow decks, then I went like back and forth. Eventually I just cut everything that cost more than Ragnaros altogether, but yeah, I go back and forth on it. It's a card that's like really phenomenal tournament play, but on ladder it's there's so many matchups where it's just completely dead that it's hard to justify playing. But like
Yeah.
cards like Ysera have the same problem. Like I don't know.
It's so funny that just the style on ladder is so different than in competitive play. Because
Definitely. Well, the reason is the competitive level play. Most players in Legendary and above just there's this just the complete and utter lack of respect for aggro. Everyone thinks
I
that
know what you
anyone that
mean.
plays an aggro deck is bad. They call
Yeah.
it newbie. I mean, really, the amount of decisions with an aggro deck are twice as many as the decisions with control. It's much harder to play because like 90 there's like two parts of Hearthstone that are actually difficult. One is the mulligan phase, like when you choose what cards you keep, which will decide like over 50% of games on its own, if you mess that up. And then the combat phase, that's where most of the decisions are made. It's not what cards you play, it's like how you attack. If you attack a creature instead of their face, and that's an attack they were going to make anyway, you just missed out on 5 damage or 4 damage. Like you basically gave them a free like Earthring Farseer heal.
Yeah.
It's like not and with aggro decks, the amount of times that it's correct to attack the face as opposed to the creature is way more frequent than with control decks. Because with the control deck, you're always just killing their guys every single time. You're killing their guys, you're trying to play your legendaries, and you're trying to use all your mana every turn, just like everyone else. But with aggro, you have that tough decision where sometimes you have to attack the face, sometimes you have to attack the creature. And some of those hands are really like, it kind of face roll. Sure, you dump your hand on the table and you
Yeah.
attack, but like, the Druid has those same draws. You're going to play your 2 mana card on turn 2, you're going to play your 3 mana card on turn 3. And I think that basically in tournament play, which is the original question, the reason that, there's just this disrespect towards aggro. So in tournament play, when it's like the better players or the players that like think they're the better players or whatever,
I think they're the
like
better
ECOP,
players. Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
when
wow,
you see,
calling out
when you see
ECOP.
those guys playing against
Right.
each other, they're all going to play their control deck because they respect it, and anyone that plays aggro is noob, and nobody has a pair to play Bluegill Charger and attack. Like, that's the reason you see control decks. And then it becomes this whole inbred thing of like big game hunter, faceless manipulator. Everyone's just trying to go bigger. Like, that's why you end up with decks like Paladin Giants that would get absolutely obliterated on ladder, but are actually good in tournament play because if everyone's playing slow decks, playing a bigger idiot is going to do more for you than like
A bigger idiot.
playing
Wow.
a faster mid-range deck.
All right, Amaz, what are your thoughts on this?
That's very true. You don't see aggro decks in tournaments. That's why Priest is doing so well. That's it. Priest is not that strong a class. It's very reactive, and reactive means that you have to prepare for everything, and you cannot prepare for everything in the world with 30 cards. So yeah, you just don't see aggro decks. In
Well, that's an
tournaments.
interesting statement you made there, because I mean, you just basically said Priest isn't that strong of a class, yet that's the class you play primarily.
Well, the main problem really is the lack of strong 2 to 4 mana class
Yeah,
cards.
for sure.
Yeah, that's really the big problem. I mean, Divine Spirit, it's all gimmicky, right? The only non-gimmicky RNG card is Thought Steal. Is my favorite card.
All right,
I'll
let's
get
talk
to
about that.
later.
We'll talk
Oh,
about
okay, we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first time I wanted to start a priest, it's I looked at Thought Steal and I immediately wanted to play the class. So I'm like playing a Thought Steal instead of playing priest, because I went like, okay, think of the best card in the game. I'm gonna Thought Steal that card plus another card, so automatically Thought Steal is the best card in the game. So that was my previous logic first. But then when I played with it, it's not really very consistent because
Yeah.
decks tend to counter themselves whether they like it or not. So for example, Handlock, they have owls, and owls do well against drakes. They just tend to counter themselves. And mid game, you actually steal their mid game creatures, so you survive mid game to your late game. Not that good against aggro though. But sometimes you might get a Soulfire against aggro. Sometimes you might get a spell against, against an aggro pally, you might get consecrate, something like that.
Yeah.
So, and it's
I mean,
always fun. It's always
well, it's
fun.
one of the few cards too that actually adds cards to your deck. There's only I think that and Ysera are the only two, I believe. Are there any other cards?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
From outside sources, yeah. But Thoughtsteal just really makes it's a stronger arcane intellect from my perspective. It really sets the priest up to win fatigue because you're not drawing from your own deck. So
Right.
yeah, that one card, if it's in the deck, that means you are playing late game, and you do not need as much win conditions as you need. I could probably just remove Rag and Mind Control and still beat late game because of the Mind Control, because of the Thought Steals. If I'm going against a Giant deck, I'm probably expecting to draw at least one giant from a two Thought Steals. So it's really a well-rounded card. But yeah, the main problem is there's no 2-drop that's good in Priest. There's no 3-drop that's good. If you drop a Thought Steal at turn 3, it sucks, kind of. It really sucks. Thought Steal is used more of a later thing. I mean, yeah, worst case, you have nothing to put in 3, you get a Thought Steal, but they really need to add in a creature that actually does something, not like Lightwell, right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
Completely. It's like it's so close to being good because it has like Priest has a lot of strengths. It has the best scaling hero power in the game. It's like just the best hero power for turn like 4 and on.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of the other hero powers are really strong early. Like Rogue has the best early hero power, for example. But yeah, like if it just had a way to like either if they reworked Innervate, I think, or if it just had a 2-mana card that wasn't like trying to all in on Lightspawn, then it would be so strong. It's just I don't know what it would have to be. Maybe like a 2-mana 1/4 that did something when it came into play.
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
probably.
I mean,
That would be a good idea.
you're talking about the problematic area being like 3 mana and just in that range. What do you guys think about 5 mana? Because I've been playing some Priest too recently, and that 5 mana slot seems to be pretty difficult, and I almost have to by default fill it with Faceless. You know, if it's not Nova, right? I mean, it's just an actual minion. Is
Well,
that
yeah,
actually a
Faceless
problem
is
for you?
not really a 5 mana cost either, right? It's just
Yeah,
you know,
it's a
just
range.
there.
There's a range.
But then yeah, most classes have a problem with turn 5 anyways. So I don't really see a big problem for Priest especially. You could put in Yetis and you could always drop a Yeti turn 5. Some Priest decks runs Yetis. That's actually pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like
But
one of the things I
yeah,
played,
not a big deal. Not a big deal.
Reynad, you gotta.
yeah, one of the things I played in my Priest deck for like the 3 and the 5 slot was actually Injured Blade Master, and I actually like that guy even without Circle of Healing. So I was gonna ask you about that. Are you just not playing him because no Circle, or?
Oh, yeah. If you play Injured Blade Master, you kind of have to play Circle, which means you have to kind of play the other stuff too as well.
Soul Priest,
But the
yeah.
problem with Blade Master really is if you put a naked Blade Master, like turn 3 just Blade Master, then it's probably gonna die, and that's not really good. If you play on turn 5, then you're paying 5 mana for a Yeti. That's not really good. It's
Yeah.
okay, but it's not really good. So really, you just need that Circle to make that Blade Master work. So yeah, when I did my classic combos deck, I had the Circle, Arcanine, Cleric, and all those stuff, and the value the Blade Master brings is not really that much in my opinion, because you are spending 2 mana to heal it. You're not putting additional creatures. It's gonna die sometime, and it's just trading the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not
That's
a
fair.
big fan of Blade Master, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay, that makes sense. I really liked Circle even without Soul Priest. I originally had it like without Soul Priest because the combo wasn't really coming up that often for me, and it let you set up some. Oh, you don't even play Northshire Cleric. Your list is actually very different from mine. That's
Oh,
nice.
yeah.
Interesting.
The thing with Circle by itself, it's not that bad. I mean, think of it as like if it heals more than one creature, you already got value over there. But it's really, once again, it's really gimmicky. It's usually a dead card in your hand.
Yeah.
Probably worse with Pyromancer, because I did have Pyromancer with the Circle. I just didn't play Watchers for the other priest deck. So usually I just use it for 1 more damage for Pyromancer.
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay. Last card I want to talk about in this deck is in just general Priest is Shadow Madness, and I think Shadow Madness really, the effectiveness of Shadow Madness I think is affected by just the meta in general, just because. Well, I mean, it can only target anything with 3 damage or less, right? And a deck that maybe it wasn't that effective against was maybe like the Strife Druid deck, just with a lot of mid game kind of units like that, just out of the range of it. What are your thoughts on Shadow Madness?
Shadow Madness is just worst multi-shot, and nobody runs multi-shot, so you can
okay.
pretty much it's pretty bad. But unfortunately, Priest just needs an answer for those crazy decks, and Pyromancers and Watchers are actually not enough, because you need both. You need both cards, right? These are combo cards.
Yeah.
You need both of the parts, and Shadow Madness does not need both of the part. Unfortunately, if they put a Voidwalker, you're screwed. If they have Feral Spirit, you're screwed because you can't kill anything. They have so much health. So yeah, that really has to combo with Smite sometimes, but it's necessary, unfortunately. A good, if you do get it to a late game with Shadow Madness, you could steal something and then Tank Master it, and then you can actually keep the minions, so it's like a removal kind of.
Yeah.
So that's not that bad. But otherwise, it's very limited in its use. It's not actually as versatile as people think. It's yeah.
Reynad, you look like you want to say something about Shadow Madness.
Well, just a really quick thing. Like right now, like Defender of Argus is the best neutral, but last season you're actually seeing like more Harvest Golem than Defender, and that was like one of the only good answers in the game to it, that you weren't like trading down when you killed Harvest Golem with.
Yeah, you got a unit.
So that's like.
Yeah,
if there's a lot of Harvest Golems going around, it's like a really strong card. But yeah, I've never played more than one.
Okay. All right. Well, why don't we switch over to Reynad's decks? We have several Reynad decks just since the community has been talking about a few of your decks on Reddit, and got the Priest deck, the Pally deck, and the Zoo Warlock deck. Which one do you want to start with, man? I'll let you pick.
Up to you. I'm kind of interested to get your guys' opinion, like Amaz's opinion on some of the stuff, because I don't actually talk to like other Legend rank players too often about card choices, so it's good to get another opinion. You can just go with whatever. I don't really know.
Okay, why don't we, since we just talked about Priests, why don't we talk about your Priest deck and kind of how it differs?
My Priest deck?
Yeah.
Did I send one?
The budget control one. Actually,
the budget control one. Yeah. Okay, so like people kept asking me to like build a. Okay, anytime I build a budget deck, it ends up being aggressive because the best aggro cards in the game are lower curve, and the lower curve cards are not usually legendaries. Like Flame Imp is an extremely efficient card for its cost, but most of the legendaries in the game are like 5 or more mana. So basically, if you want to build a good budget deck, you're not sacrificing anything in card quality by being aggro. Whereas if you're trying to build a control deck, you're sacrificing a ton of card quality if you're trying to be a control deck on a budget, because you're missing out on all these legendaries that those decks need a lot more than aggro does. So anyway, people kept asking me to build like a control deck, and I'm like, okay, I'll try, but it's not gonna look pretty. And I thought about what class to do it with. At first, I thought about Druid with like Ironbark Oak, but that late game was just weaker than it was just a lot weaker than what Priest would be able to do. And I figured that Mind Control, Thought Steal are just really effective cards. If I'm not gonna play with Cairns, the other guy probably is. So, and I tested it out. Really strong scaling hero power. Like
cool.
It was just it was something I put together, and I played for a few hours on ladder, and I won. I played it in like 12 games. I won like 8 of them, and that was this season, so it was only like rank 15, 14, but it was a couple of those games were against legend rank players from last season. So like. Nobody was like legend yet at the time. But yeah, the deck's not bad. Amaz is obviously going to do a lot better. It has like all of the cards that the Priest deck really needs. But if you're just trying to play like a control deck on a budget, that's a good place to start because the cards get pretty decent value, and it's not completely neutered going long because of the double mind control. You're not just going to outright lose to somebody's superior late game with that. So
yeah. The Temple Enforcers, that's always been a card that I thought was pretty, from a value standpoint, was actually pretty good. It's a little bit analogous. It's
like so close.
It's so hard to make work though. It's kind of analogous to a fire elemental, but it's more of a defense. It's like a health play versus like a removal.
Well, it's not that Temple Enforcer is like not good enough to get played. That's not the reason. The reason that any card gets played in Hearthstone is because it's better than the other cards in that card slot. So like that's why Sylvanas is getting played a lot, because there weren't other good 5-drops for every class.
Yeah.
It's a very rare spot in the curve. The reason that Temple Enforcer doesn't see play with Priest is because you have so many other good 6-drops. Yeah. There's so many good 6s. You have Cairn, Cabal Shadow Priest, and Holy Fire, all of which are probably better. and then like that's mainly what's pushing it out. You only have room
Yeah.
for so many 6 drops.
God, they made it a 5 drop and
Yeah,
just like
being sick.
altered it a little bit. Oh my god, that'd be sick.
It was like a 5/5 for
Yeah,
five.
exactly, right? Even 2 + 2, that'd be amazing. Amaz, what do you think of
You
this
really
deck?
need to buff Profit Bell, and that's what they need to buff. If that guy was like a 4 mana 3/5 or
Oh,
something.
villain's really bad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Amaz, what do you
His
his
think
effect
of...
is good.
Oh, what do you think of this budget deck?
Yeah, if it's a budget deck, it's actually pretty well crafted. Of course, when people start getting cards, they can substitute. Yeah, they can substitute Temple Enforcers because it's really rare that you have something on the board as a priest. I mean, Sunwalkers. What I'm thinking is Sunwalkers because of the meta right now. That might be good. To go on the 6th slot, and it's actually 2 mind controls, right? So I think that might be a bit overkill. Yeah, that's the one I think that's a bit overkill. You might need a more um, flexible win condition. Obviously, I'm just looking at deck right now. I haven't tested it
Yeah,
yet, but a more flexible win condition would be a bit better. Something like a Stormwind Champion. That's actually fine. Because if you even have 1 minion, it's good enough already.
Yeah, that's true.
Uh, yeah, but any dragon will do. Yeah, people ask me a lot. What can I replace stuff with? I want to craft your priest deck, but I don't have the cards. What can I replace them with? But yeah, generally any card that costs more than 7, it's okay as a win condition, because you do need those big creatures as a priest.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about the zoo deck. I want to kind of get to the Pally last because there's a lot of goodies in the Pally deck, and we haven't really touched on it yet. So let's talk about the zoo deck. We've talked a little bit about it already in just the discussion in the meta, and even in the discussion with Amaz's deck. What any first comments that you want to talk about this? Obviously, I think a big point of discussion was the shield bearer. I think I remember just when it first,
yeah.
when everybody was just first seeing it. And shield bearer's always been thought of as a bad card.
There were so many overpowered things in Hearthstone for so many seasons that it took me a really long time to find that guy. I really should have. I really, really should have been playing him the second Blood Imp got nerfed. He's just so incredibly powerful. I almost think he's better than Voidwalker nowadays.
All right. All
In
right.
some
Talk about the
cases.
reason why.
Okay, so basically, uh, it seems like a defensive card that's really bad at slowing your opponent down, but it's actually, you play it aggressively. If you have a bunch of, if you're trying to dump a bunch of 3/2s onto the table, the way your opponent counters that is by killing them with Harvest Golem, attacking them, Claw, whatever, Hero Power. And the reason Voidwalker, Shield Bearer are so good is that like they protect your creatures from those hero powers. They protect your creatures from getting attacked. They allow you to dictate what attacks what, and it makes it really, really hard for your opponent to catch up once you have a lead. Because at the cost of 1 mana on turn 4, like on turn 4, you're playing like a Scarlet Crusader and a Shield Bearer. Like they can't hero power your Scarlet Crusader anymore unless they're mage. They can't they can't attack it. They can't attack your creatures that matter with their creatures. Like it's just for 1 mana, you're basically sacrificing card advantage for tempo, and it helps you snowball those leads. And like in control matchups, a lot of times your opponent isn't like defensively playing creatures. Sometimes they don't draw Harvest Golem; they just have the like all removal spell draw. And Shield Bearer doesn't look like he's doing much in those games, and he isn't. But that's why you play Dire Wolf Alpha, Abusive Sergeant, Dark Iron Dwarf, stuff to buff him.
Okay. The Doom Guards. I think that's always been a point of discussion too amongst. I know some of the players I've talked to in the past, whether it's a good option or not, or whether we want to run Leroy versus Doom Guard.
No, card's overpowered as hell. What are you gonna say? Sorry, okay, go.
Yeah, just talk about that because obviously the price you pay is to dump 2 cards, but obviously there's positions when you're a Warlock when you have no cards to dump, right? When you play the Doom Guard.
Yeah, well, it's like why we're playing Warlock, right? We have a ridiculous mid-game hero power. It just means we don't run out of gas. Like a 5/7 charge for 5 is absurd. Like that card would, if that was like a neutral 6 drop that didn't make you discard or something, people would play that. Like
Yeah.
if it was a neutral 7 drop that didn't make you discard cards, people would probably play that. It's like it's such a powerful card for so little cost. And if you're playing a really low curve deck, then you can dump all your cards onto the table before you play Doomguard. A lot of times you're not, you're discarding like one card that doesn't matter that much. And it takes like some skill to learn to play with, because sometimes you have to Soulfire preemptively, even if it's
Yeah.
like last card in your hand, just in case you draw Doomguard and stuff. But no, it's a really powerful card. I can't believe people are not playing 2 of it in Murlocs and stuff. I think it's just incorrect. to not play that. Like,
Okay, so it's not completely situational where you only play it when there's nothing to dump.
no, you just gotta man up. Play a 5/7, discard 2 good cards. Who cares? Your whole deck is good cards.
Okay, cool. Amaz, comments on the zoo deck, or even just that Doom Guard?
No. When you said the Doomguard discards 2 cards, yeah, just let discard 2 cards, because in my opinion, all the Warlock cards are bad. So it's okay if you just discard 2 cards
That's a good
to
way to
get a
look
very
at it.
good minion
Okay.
out there, because they're all really much the same thing, right? If you're gonna draw another card, it's pretty much gonna accomplish the same thing. You know you're gonna draw a low creature. You know you're gonna play it. So that's actually a very good choice in the deck. Um, when I play it, so when I first saw this deck, I was really surprised at how well it did. But then as I gradually got more attuned to like guessing what's coming up next, it actually for me it kind of got a little predictable because it doesn't have a lot of surprises in the deck, right? Um,
Yeah, there's no
Generally
power
because
overwhelming
it
or
doesn't run a
anything
lot
like
of
that.
spells.
Yeah, yeah.
The only surprises are, oh, there's Doomguard, and that's probably about it, right? The Doomguard's really the main surprise. So it's easier for me to play around it, especially if I'm using another deck. So yeah, I'm interested to see how people will sub cards, because if people see a deck, usually they have too much pride to play the exact same replica. They go like, oh, I must change something. This deck is not perfect.
Of course.
And I'm surprised of what people will change in this deck to make it a bit more surprising. Because right now, it's pretty much you expect what is coming. It's kind of like a druid deck, right? You expect what drops are coming, but sometimes you can't really play against this because it's so strong.
It's still too strong, right?
Right, exactly. But
Okay.
when you expect something, you have better plays, given your choices.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay. Cool. You haven't got a chance to play the zoo deck much yet, so I'm really excited. It's kind of cool that it's got 4 big taunts in it, and just the way you use it, I can definitely tell that you'll have to play this a good amount just to really figure it out. Okay, let's get to the paladin deck. There's a lot of great cards. Man, your decks, man, they like it's it makes my eyes water because there's just so much gold the cards in it, man. Let's talk about the paladin deck. And all right, let me pick out some of the cards that are really discussion points. All right, let's just start from the top. Doomsayer in a paladin deck. We don't see that very often, so.
I played that guy so much in season 1. It's like, okay, so like the thing with Doomsayer, or the thing with Paladin is you have a lot of good late game, a lot of good mid game cards, a lot of good 4s, 7s, 8s, but you don't have a lot of good early plays. A lot of the cheaper Paladin cards are like Secrets that are unplayable, Light's Justice that's mostly unplayable, like Argent Protector that you can't play in a control deck because you're not playing other cheap creatures. So you have to play something that keeps you alive early. You can't just hero power. So Doomsayer is really good against aggressive decks. If they play 1 creature, you play Doomsayer. If you take 3 damage, you kill their creature, but they're also not playing a second one on turn 2. So it gives you the first play on board. You play like Earthring, Farseer, then you can start attacking stuff before they attack. Like basically, it's in your opening hand, it's very powerful against aggro, but in the mid game is where it's really powerful. Like Doomsayer dictates when your opponent can and cannot play creatures. Like if you're playing if you have a Ysera in hand, I kind of explained this in the deck on my YouTube, but like if you have like a Ragnaros or Ysera in hand that you want to play next turn, if your opponent has a bunch of stuff in play when you play that card, you're just gonna die. Like if you're playing against Druid, they're gonna attack you for 12 and swipe you, and you're not alive anymore.
Right.
So you can't play Ysera on boards where you're behind and expect it to do enough. So what Doomsayer does is the turn before that, before they dump a bunch of guys on the table, you kill the 1 creature they do have with something, a True Silver or whatever. You play your Doomsayer, and then you pass back. And your opponent's put in this position of, well, do I silence this just so I can have like 2/4 Keeper of the Grove in play? Do I waste a removal spell? No, they have no creatures. They're like, oh, whatever, I'll just hero power him, not use 6 of my mana and pass back. So your opponent has six of their mana unspent because they just spent their entire turn hero powering you. The turn goes back to you, Doomsayer blows up, and there's no creatures in play. He didn't kill anything, but he still did his job because that whole stock mana thing, they didn't use 6 of their mana, and now you have a nice empty board to play your big, giant, legendary animal onto, and you're not going to just die to the counter swing. So you just you use it in the mid game to dictate when your opponent can and cannot play creatures.
Yeah, it's always been a tempo grasping card. Probably the strongest tempo grasping card, I think, in Hearthstone. Amaz, what are your thoughts on Doomsayer?
I really like the pick. I really like the pick. I played against this exact paladin, and
Really?
when
Okay.
it was late game, and he played two Doomsayers, and I couldn't kill. I was really sad. I was just really sad. But
That's
yeah,
brutal.
it's just
Yeah,
awesome.
Priest
It's
is the
really good.
worst matchup. It can't beat Priest, but aside from that, it's okay.
Okay, let's see. Moving on to the next card, I think to point out. Let's go with the Kodos. Two
Right.
Kodos.
So,
All right.
yeah, Maz was talking earlier about it, how it's hard to find good 5 drops for a lot of classes, and Kodo's just really powerful right now. I was actually thinking of playing him instead of like Azure Drake, even in Druid, but because he has like an immediate effect, he's better when you're behind on board than something like Drake is. But yeah, so Kodo, most of the time he'll have a target. If there's a lot of decks like Zoo running around, there's more small creatures being played. If your opponent's Shaman, like he's almost always gonna have a target on his own. But even when he doesn't, on turn 8. You can Aldor Peacekeeper, their big guy, then Kodo, their Ragnaros, which I did on stream a couple of times yesterday. Like, oh, that stuff's always fun. I used to play like one Humility and stuff, which is the 1 mana card that sets something's power to 1 to combo with that too. But right now you don't need to do that because Kodo always has a target on his own. So just
Okay.
a good 5 drop when you're ahead or behind.
Amaz, Kodo? I know you like a Kodo too, right?
Yeah, I play Kodos in my paladin deck too. It combos well with outdoor sometimes. You can you know, it's basically a remover, right, for
Yeah.
big stuff. So yeah, it's just it's a very good 5. Not the best. Not everybody's including because it's not the best right now, but it's definitely up there as a 5 drop because 5 drops are really hard to choose. Now that I think of it, Spiteful Smith might be the better neutral 5 cost card because it's basically a Drew of the Claw without the taunt, right? So
Yeah.
if people want to try out that 5 cost, you can try out that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I had a question for you about this Paladin deck. How does it do against the handlock? Because the one thing that I see in some Paladin decks is sometimes you get that faceless with some type of removal, whether it's big game. You still have Tank in here, which does help against big units like that.
Yeah.
But does it do all right against giant decks and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but actually played against it like 5 times yesterday. It's actually like a skill matchup, I think. You have to actually out control them, and then since you slow the game down, kill their stuff, take it nice and slow. You don't have to try to be the aggressor. Pray to God you draw both
Yeah,
equalities. Um,
vampires and
but yeah, you just kind of kill their stuff slowly, and eventually that deck whittles itself down to 15 life or so. And if you can just avoid dying, like you have so many good ways to kill their big guys. You can just Peacekeeper them, and if they don't have Iron Beak Owl for their own creature, then that's
yeah,
going to work. You can also Peacekeeper plus Kodo. You can Tink Master. You can Equality.
yeah,
It's
that's a
not
good
too
point.
tough for you to answer their big guys. So as long as you stay alive for a while, they whittle themselves down to like 15, then they go to like 10, and all of a sudden they're dead out of nowhere with like a True Silver plus an Avenging Wrath. So
Yeah,
that's
got
the
it.
matchups. I think I won like 4 out of 5 yesterday, so I don't think it's that bad, but that's a small sample size, so I'm not really sure yet.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, why don't we wrap up the deck talk there, and we'll go into some Q&A. But let's take a quick break. It's been a little bit of a while. Maybe we can get some water or whatever. So we'll be right back, guys. Stay tuned.